The stars had forgotten about humans. For thousands of years, the galaxy moved on as if they had never existed. Traders crossed systems, empires rose and fell, and new species fought over who would rule the spiral arms of the Milky Way. The name Earth was mentioned only in old records, half-believed stories told by travelers. To most, it was just a myth, a tale of a strange, short-lived species that burned bright and disappeared too soon. But deep under the ice of a forgotten moon, something still waited. A quiet hum pulsed through the frozen silence, steady and patient. It had been there for 5,000 years, watching, waiting, preserving. Inside a hidden vault built of black alloy and ancient technology, thousands of pods stood lined in silence. Each pod held a sleeping figure, perfectly preserved, their hearts still, their minds frozen in time. No one in the galaxy remembered why humanity fell. Some believed they destroyed themselves in war. Others thought they had been wiped out by disease or by some great natural disaster. The truth was lost, buried along with them. But one thing was certain: the humans had not gone willingly. Before their fall, they had prepared. They had built these vaults hidden in forgotten corners of the galaxy, sealed away with codes only their kind could unlock. For 5,000 years, the vault had slept beneath the ice. Storms swept over the moon's surface, meteors crashed and melted into the snow, but the vault remained untouched. The power cores inside ran silently, fueled by reactors built to last forever. The humans inside remained unchanged, their faces peaceful, unaware of the long centuries passing. Far away, the galaxy had grown comfortable. The Volari Union ruled this region now, a vast alliance of alien species built on trade, technology, and a quiet fear of war. They believed the age of destruction was over. To them, humanity was an old legend, told to scare cadets or impress scholars, a species that had once mastered chaos, built great machines, and then vanished. That illusion ended on an ordinary survey mission. The Volari ship Calrith was scanning mineral fields in a remote system when its sensors caught something strange, a faint power reading, coming from a frozen moon that should have been dead. The crew argued whether it was worth checking. The readings were old, unstable, but curiosity and greed won. If it was lost technology, they could sell it for fortunes. They landed their ship on the icy surface. The wind howled, snow whirling around their suits as they dug through the crust of frozen rock. Beneath the ice, they found metal, smooth, dark, and far stronger than anything they'd seen. Their scanners couldn't identify the alloy. "This isn't Volari tech," one of them muttered through the comms. "Could be pre-Union relics." They drilled deeper, melting through layers of ice until a doorway appeared, covered in dust and frost. Strange symbols were carved across it, lines and curves that looked almost like writing. None of their translation tools recognized it. When they tried to pry it open, the metal resisted. But when one of them touched a glowing panel near the edge, the door moved on its own, sliding open with a low hiss. A pale blue light filled the chamber beyond. Inside was a massive hall lined with rows of silent machines. The air was cold, too clean, too still. At the far end, there was a wall filled with circular glass pods, hundreds, maybe thousands of them. Each pod contained a motionless figure. The Volari explorers froze. Their leader shone a light on the nearest pod. Inside was a being that none of them had ever seen before, tall, pale, with short hair and strange facial features. "What are these things?" Another asked. No one knew. But as their scanners began to work, data appeared on their screens: biological signatures, ancient coding, energy traces. And one symbol appeared again and again, an eagle with spread wings clutching a globe beneath its talons. The leader frowned. This is old Terran design." The word Terran hung in the air like a ghost. They had all heard it before. The lost species. The extinct humans. The crew hesitated. They knew they should report the discovery, but greed whispered louder. Technology this old could make them rich beyond measure. So instead of calling their command, they began to open one of the pods to see what they could salvage. When they broke the seal, the vault reacted. The lights flared. A deep rumble echoed through the chamber as ancient systems came alive. Symbols flashed across the walls. The air grew warmer, and then without warning, a pulse of blue light shot up through the ceiling and into space. A coded signal, traveling faster than any wave the Volari had ever seen. In distant parts of the galaxy, other forgotten machines stirred. On a dead asteroid, a relay station blinked for the first time in 5,000 years. Deep in the void, something old received the signal and sent it onward. Back in the vault, the crew panicked. They tried to shut the system down, but every console they touched refused their commands. Words appeared on the main screen, written in that same strange language, then translated automatically by their systems. Terran Vault 09, awakening sequence initiated. The air filled with the soft hum of energy as one pod began to open. The Volari froze, their hearts racing. The glass slid aside, releasing a thin cloud of vapor. Inside, a figure slowly moved. The being's eyes opened. Human eyes. He took a deep breath, the first in 5,000 years. His muscles trembled as he pushed himself up, looking around at the strange faces surrounding him. For a moment, confusion flickered across his face. Then something colder replaced it. Awareness. The Volari leader tried to speak, his voice shaking. "Stay calm. We mean no harm." But the human didn't understand their words. He looked at the glowing weapons in their hands, at the metallic suits, and at the strange light above him. Instinct took over. He moved faster than they expected, grabbing a nearby device, reading it in seconds, and interfacing with it through sheer intuition. The lights in the vault shifted, the doors sealed shut, and the alien weapons powered down. The explorers shouted in panic. None of them understood how the human could control their systems, but it was already too late. The vault recognized his DNA, his command codes. It knew him. Through the glass walls, other pods began to glow faintly. The hum grew louder, steadier, like a heartbeat returning to life. The human looked at his reflection in the pod's glass, his face older in memory than in reality. Images flashed in his mind. Earth's oceans, burning skies, cities falling. He remembered orders, promises, the last stand of his kind. They had sworn that if humanity ever returned, it would not crawl, it would rise. He looked at the terrified aliens before him, then at the ancient machines around him. The vault had survived. Humanity had survived. Somewhere inside him, a calm certainty formed. He pressed his hand against the console. The vault lights turned red. Across the moon's surface, hidden towers rose from beneath the ice, sending waves of energy into orbit. Satellites that had slept for millennia began to reactivate. Far above, the Velary ship in orbit received a sudden burst of encrypted data. The pilots shouted for evacuation, but before they could lift off, their systems froze. A new signal had taken control. Every screen flashed with the same phrase: humanity, awakening protocol confirmed. On the surface, the humans stood beneath the flickering lights. The aliens had retreated, leaving their equipment behind. He walked slowly toward the entrance of the vault, feeling the cold air against his skin. Above him, the stars shone exactly as they had 5,000 years ago. He whispered words that only he could understand, his voice quiet, almost reverent. It wasn't anger. It was memory. He knew the galaxy outside had changed. New species, new empires, new rulers who thought they had inherited the stars. But none of them remembered what humans had been capable of. Their will to survive, their defiance in the face of extinction. The vault doors opened, and the wind rushed in. Snow swirled around him as he stepped onto the frozen plain. Somewhere out there, the signal was spreading, waking others. Humanity was stirring again. And for the first time in 5,000 years, the stars had reason to be afraid. He looked up at the endless night sky and smiled, not with pride, but with quiet determination. The universe had forgotten them. Now it would remember. In the darkness of the frozen moon, lights continued to flicker on, one after another, until the entire valley glowed with blue fire. Beneath the ice, thousands of pods began to open, releasing their silent guardians into the cold. The long sleep was ending. Humanity was awakening. The wind outside the vault howled across the icy moon as the stars shimmered faintly above. The human stood there in silence, feeling the strange world around him. The air was thin, the light dim, but it was real. After 5,000 years, he could finally breathe again. Behind him, the vault was no longer quiet. Machines were waking up one by one, releasing the deep hum of power that had slept for ages. The glowing pods along the walls began to open slowly. Inside each, another human stirred, their bodies trembling as life returned to them. The first awakened human turned back and watched as others emerged. Confusion filled their faces at first. They looked around, unsure of where they were or what had happened. Some tried to speak, their voices dry and weak, the words lost in the cold air. Others simply stood in silence, realizing that everything they once knew might be gone. The vault's central system came alive, projecting soft light across the hall. A calm voice echoed through the air, mechanical but familiar. It was the vault's guardian AI, still loyal after all this time. "Awakening sequence complete," it said. Time elapsed since stasis entry, 5,042 years. External environment stable. Internal systems active. The humans listened in silence. 5,000 years. The number felt unreal. Some stared at each other as if trying to find reassurance that they weren't dreaming. The first human stepped forward and accessed the central console. Old instincts guided his hands. He didn't need to remember everything. His training, his purpose, it was built into him. The console came to life with ancient Earth symbols. Files flashed across the screen. Images of oceans, forests, and cities that no longer existed. He opened the last entry made before the vault sealed itself. It was a message from the past, a final report from the old Terran command. "Vault system secured," the recording said. "If you are hearing this, humanity has endured. The world we knew may be gone, but our spirit is not. You are the continuation. You are the memory of Earth." A heavy silence followed. Every human in the chamber understood what those words meant. There was no Earth left to return to, no home waiting for them. They were alone in a galaxy that had forgotten them. The first human looked up, his eyes scanning the others. The silence between them was not empty, it was full of understanding. They all knew what they had to do. Humanity's story was not over. It was only beginning again. They started with the vault. The systems were old but built to last forever. The humans spread out, checking the machines, restarting the reactors, and restoring communications. It felt almost natural. Every one of them remembered their roles as if their purpose had been sleeping with them. Engineers repaired power lines, scientists studied atmospheric data, soldiers secured the perimeter. Outside, strange alien equipment was scattered around, the tools and scanners left behind by the Valari explorers who had fled in fear. The humans examined the technology carefully. It was advanced but unfamiliar. The first human realized that the galaxy had moved far ahead in their absence. Yet, even as they studied the alien devices, their minds began to adapt. They could already see how to understand it, improve it, and maybe even use it. Hours passed. The cold surface of the moon glowed faintly as the vault's outer lights reactivated. Giant antennas rose from the ground, releasing faint energy waves into the sky. Across the nearby system, old Terran satellites began to wake, forming a small network once again. One of the scientists found a communication console still linked to deep space transmitters. She restored power to it, and ancient data began to stream through the channels. At first it was noise, static and scattered fragments of alien transmissions. But then they started decoding it. The messages revealed a shocking truth. The galaxy was now ruled by multiple alien empires, each claiming to have shaped history. None of them mentioned humans. Some even called Earth a myth. The humans read these reports quietly, their faces calm but their eyes sharp. It was strange to see how the galaxy had erased them completely, as if they had never existed. Inside the vault, the humans gathered around the central hall. They had power again, food generators, working life support, and a growing understanding of the alien technology. They could survive here for years if they needed to. But survival was not enough. They needed to remember who they were. The first human opened a compartment near the main chamber and found an old Terran flag, sealed in a container. The fabric was faded, the colors dull, but the symbol was still clear. The eagle, wings spread wide. He held it for a moment, then hung it near the control panel. The others stopped and looked at it in silence. That symbol reminded them of something deeper than history. It reminded them of what humanity once stood for, the will to rise again no matter how many times it fell. They worked for days, turning the silent vault into a small base. The air grew warmer, lights brighter, machines humming with purpose again. Each person contributed, no orders, no rank, just instinct and shared understanding. They repaired drones, built scanners, and reactivated old defense systems buried beneath the ice. When the first defense turret powered up, it scanned the sky automatically. It detected movement, something in orbit. The readings showed an alien vessel still nearby. It was likely the Valari ship. Monitoring from a safe distance, the humans didn't attack. They simply watched. They needed information, not war. The first human accessed the ship's transmissions. Within minutes, the vault systems had broken through the alien encryption. The humans learned everything: coordinates, ship design, and even their language. That was their gift. The ability to learn, to adapt, to understand. In only a few hours, they knew how the Volari ships worked and how to contact them. But they didn't send any message. Not yet. Instead, the humans focused on restoring a second system hidden deep below the vault. A communication relay built to reach other Terran installations across the stars. It had been silent for millennia, but the power systems were intact. Once it was active, it began searching for signals. At first, nothing responded. Then faintly, something answered. A weak signal, far away but unmistakably human in origin. The vault shook with energy as the humans realized what that meant. They were not the only ones left. Somewhere out there, another vault had survived. The first human stood before the console, listening to the faint repeating message. It was distorted, but the words were clear enough to understand. Vault 14, active. Request identification. Humanity endures. A wave of emotion ran through the hall. They weren't alone. After 5,000 years, other humans were waking too. The first human ordered the signal amplified. Energy surged through the relay towers outside. A pulse of light shot into the sky, vanishing into the stars. Across the galaxy, other ancient systems began to detect the transmission. While they worked, the Volari ship in orbit panicked. Their sensors picked up enormous energy spikes coming from the moon. They didn't understand what they had triggered. To them, the humans were a dangerous unknown, an old ghost species returning from extinction. They sent messages back to their Union command, warning them that the Terrans were alive. By the time the Volari fleet returned to investigate, the humans had already fortified the vault. The old automated defense grid was back online. Drones patrolled the skies. The base beneath the ice was now more than a shelter. It was a fortress. The Volari ship stayed at a distance, scanning the surface nervously. They could see faint blue lights through the snow and metal towers reaching toward the stars. Their commanders debated whether to attack or retreat. But then something strange happened. The Terran base sent out a signal, a calm, structured message written in the Volari language. "We are not your enemy. Do not interfere. Humanity has returned." No one on the Volari ships dared to respond. They simply watched as the lights on the surface grew brighter, spreading across the ice like veins of fire. Inside the vault, the humans stood together. They had food, power, and now hope. They knew the galaxy might not welcome them. They knew fear would follow. But that didn't matter. For 5,000 years, humanity had been silent. Now their voices were reaching the stars again. The long sleep was ending, and with every pod that opened, their strength returned. The first human looked up at the holographic display showing distant vaults flickering to life. Vault 14, Vault 22, Vault 05, signals appearing one by one across the galactic map. He closed his eyes for a moment, breathing deeply. He didn't know what the galaxy would do when they realized humanity was awake again, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. The universe had moved on without them, but it was about to change again, and this time humanity wouldn't be forgotten. The frozen moon was no longer silent. The hum of machines echoed through the caverns beneath the ice. Towers of light now rose high above the surface, cutting through the stormy winds. Humanity had awakened, and the world around them felt alive again. Inside the vault, hundreds of humans worked with calm focus. Their bodies were still adjusting, but their minds were sharp, their instincts stronger than ever. They repaired old systems, decoded alien transmissions, and studied the galaxy they had once called home. Every flicker of light on the control panels reminded them how far they had come, from extinction to survival. But the biggest discovery wasn't the machines they fixed. It was the faint signals they began to receive. Signals from other Terran vaults spread across the galaxy. At first, the messages were weak, barely readable, a faint voice repeating the same pattern over and over. Vault 14, active, requesting connection. Then another followed. Vault 22, systems online. Each new message brought a rush of excitement. Every transmission meant another group of humans had survived. Some were on distant planets, some hidden inside asteroids, others deep beneath long-dead worlds. It was as if a web of life was slowly lighting up across the galaxy. Inside the main chamber, the humans gathered as the map projected above them. One by one, blue lights appeared on the galactic display, marking each awakened vault. The pattern was beautiful, a network that had waited for thousands of years to come alive again. The first human stood before the map in silence. There was no celebration, no loud cheering, only quiet determination. Humanity was waking, but the world they were waking into was no longer theirs. In the far distance of space, alien empires were already watching. The Valari Union had not kept their discovery a secret. Their fleets had recorded everything. The reactivation, the energy surges, and the strange signals spreading across space. The news traveled fast. Within weeks, every major power in the galaxy knew the extinct species had returned. In the central worlds of the Union, debates erupted. Some believed the humans should be contacted peacefully. Others argued that they were dangerous and should be destroyed before they became a threat. Old records described humanity as unpredictable, a race of builders and warriors that refused to surrender, even when facing extinction. The galaxy remembered their stories, and those memories were enough to make the most powerful empires uneasy. On the frozen moon, the humans continued their work. They had intercepted the alien messages, and they knew they were being watched. But they didn't hide. Instead, they prepared. Their technology might have been ancient, but it was built by minds that understood how to last. They learned to combine their old Terran systems with the new alien tech they had found. Slowly, they created something new, stronger, faster, and more efficient. The engineers managed to restore one of the old Terran drones. It was a small, spherical machine designed for reconnaissance. After some adjustments, it lifted off the ground and shot into the sky. The humans watched its camera feed as it climbed through the clouds and reached orbit. The stars looked clearer than ever, and the frozen moon below seemed so small compared to the endless black around it. From orbit, the drone detected multiple alien ships nearby, the Valari fleet still observing. The humans didn't attack. They simply marked the ships on their radar and let them watch. The humans had learned long ago that fear could be a weapon too. Over the next few days, more vaults made contact. Some were stronger than others. Vault 14 had already built a small base on a nearby planet, using old terraforming machines to make the air breathable again. Vault 22 had managed to awaken over 1,000 people and was now producing food using underground hydro systems. Each one was rebuilding, each one adapting. Communication between vaults grew stronger. They shared data, history, and updates on the galaxy. Within weeks, they had re-established a small network. Not an empire, not yet, but something more important, unity. Far across the stars, in the grand halls of the Valari Union, leaders gathered to discuss the problem. They didn't understand how humans could recover so fast. 5,000 years of sleep should have made them weak, helpless. Yet these revived Terrans were already repairing ships, building stations, and activating ancient defenses. One Valari commander summarized the fear that many felt. We did not bring them back. We only touched what was buried. Now it is awake. But to the humans, it wasn't about revenge or domination. It was about survival, about reclaiming their place among the stars that once belonged to them. Inside the moon's vault, the humans were preparing their next step. Using old blueprints, they began to rebuild a small fleet. It started with one ship, a sleek, dark vessel buried deep underground. It was called a Scout-class ship, designed for exploration and recon during humanity's final days before the fall. The humans restored it piece by piece, replacing damaged components, refitting the engines, and reprogramming the navigation systems. When the ship finally powered up, its engines glowed softly and the humans gathered to watch. The vault shook slightly as it lifted off the ground for the first time in 5,000 years. The sound wasn't loud, but it carried weight, the sound of return. The first human watched the ship disappear into the clouds. For a long time, he said nothing. Then quietly, he spoke to the others. This is only the beginning. We are not ghosts anymore. We are home again. The humans around him nodded. They didn't know what awaited them in the wider galaxy, allies, enemies, or emptiness. But they didn't fear it. Fear was for those who had something to lose. Humanity had already lost everything once. There was nothing left but the will to rise again. Meanwhile, in distant systems, alien broadcasts filled the airwaves. News of human awakening reached every corner. Traders spoke of seeing Terran signals. Explorers claimed to have witnessed old human satellites flicker back to life. Some called it a myth. Others began to worry. Old stories came back. Stories of the wars humans once fought, how they had stood against impossible odds, how they built fleets that could destroy whole armadas. Whether true or exaggerated, it didn't matter. The legend itself was enough to create fear. In hidden corners of the galaxy, smaller species began to whisper to each other. Some saw hope. If the humans had survived extinction, maybe they could help free others from the rule of the great empires. Others wanted nothing to do with them. They remembered the fire that came with humanity, the passion that burned too bright. On the frozen moon, time moved differently. Each day brought new progress. The humans now had communication links to 5 active vaults. They began sharing resources, metal, fuel, food, and knowledge. They used old warp gates left behind by ancient Terran expeditions to send supplies between systems. They were scattered, but connected. For now, that was enough. The Volari Union sent a small ship to make contact. It hovered above the moon, broadcasting a message of peace. The humans listened carefully, translating every word. The aliens claimed they meant no harm and wished to negotiate. But behind their polite words, the humans heard the truth: fear. Instead of responding, the humans sent a simple message back. Observation is permitted. Interference is not. No threats, no anger. Just a reminder. They were awake and watching. The Volari ship retreated soon after. Its crew could not understand the calm confidence in that message. To them, humans should have been disoriented, lost, confused. Instead, they acted like they had never been gone. Inside the vault, the humans gathered once again around the map. More signals were appearing. Vault 07, Vault 31, Vault 46, each one lighting up across the stars. The galaxy that had forgotten them was slowly being filled with the heartbeat of a species returning from silence. The first human watched as the lights grew brighter. His reflection in the glass looked tired but alive. They were not yet ready for open contact, not yet ready for war or peace. But the time would come, for now they rebuilt. They learned, they remembered. Every machine restored, every vault awakened, every signal sent was one more step toward reclaiming what they had lost. Humanity didn't rush. They moved carefully, quietly, like an old predator relearning how to move in a changed world. Outside, the frozen storms began to calm. The blue lights from the vault spread across the landscape, forming patterns that could be seen from orbit, the mark of the old Terran emblem. Far beyond that system, in deep space, something ancient stirred, the remains of an old Terran dreadnought buried in the void, receiving the same awakening signal. Its systems came online, engines humming softly. The largest ship humanity ever built was awakening too. The galaxy didn't know it yet. But this was only the beginning. Humanity was not just surviving anymore. It was returning. The stars no longer felt distant. For the first time in 5,000 years, human ships were moving through space again. The small scout vessels, rebuilt from the ruins of ancient technology, glided through the blackness, scanning planets, moons, and forgotten stations. Every flight was a message to the galaxy. Humanity had returned. Inside the vault on the frozen moon, life had become organized. What once looked like ruins had turned into a growing outpost. There were workshops, greenhouses, command rooms, and training areas. Humans were adapting fast. They used every scrap of alien and Terran technology they could find. They didn't waste anything. Every day started with silence, a brief moment where they stood together facing the projection of Earth that the AI displayed on the wall. It was a tradition now, a way to remember where they came from. None of them had seen Earth with their own eyes, yet every one of them felt its pull in their hearts. That memory gave them purpose. Messages from other vaults kept coming. The network had grown stronger. At least 10 Terran vaults were now active, spread across different sectors. Some were rebuilding ships. Others were mining, farming, or studying alien systems. A few had already started forming small fleets to protect their worlds. The humans on the moon worked day and night to repair what remained of the first real warship they had found. It was massive, buried under ice and rock, hidden there by their ancestors. The old records called it Ark 7, one of the final ships built before humanity fell. Half of it was frozen solid, but its core systems were still functional. The engineers were amazed at how well it had survived. The design was old, but its power core still pulsed faintly. waiting for activation. The moment they turned it on, the entire vault trembled. A deep, powerful sound echoed through the ground, the heartbeat of a ship that had been asleep for millennia. The ship's systems came alive slowly. Old displays flickered, showing ancient codes and incomplete messages. It had once carried thousands of people. Now it was empty but ready to serve again. The first human and his team entered the main bridge. The air smelled of rust and dust, but the lights were still there, glowing weakly. He placed his hand on the main console, and the system recognized him instantly. "Identity confirmed," the AI voice said. "Captain clearance restored." "Welcome back." Those words carried weight. Everyone on the bridge fell silent. That single sentence meant something bigger than command. It meant humanity still had control of its destiny. Work on Arc 7 began immediately. Humans from other vaults sent data and resources to help restore it. Some traveled across systems to join the effort. It became a symbol of unity, a project that reminded every surviving human that they were one people again. While humanity worked, the galaxy watched in silence, and in fear. Across alien empires, news of the human awakening spread faster than light. The Valori Union, the first to discover them, held emergency meetings. The Council of the Altheran Empire demanded to know how a lost species could rebuild so fast. Trade guilds started to panic, wondering if Terran technology would shift the balance of power. In some places, people cheered. Small colonies ruled harshly by alien overlords began to whisper, "The Terrans are back." They hoped humans would stand against the empires that had dominated the stars for centuries. But others feared that same idea. They remembered the old legends, how humans once fought against entire coalitions and refused to surrender. Inside the moon base, humans could hear those whispers too. They intercepted the broadcasts, studied every word, and learned how the galaxy saw them. The first humans stood in the command room, watching the news feeds. Aliens debated on screen, military leaders issued warnings, and fleets began to move closer to Terran space. He understood what this meant. The galaxy wasn't ready to accept their return peacefully. He didn't order any attack. Instead, he said quietly to his team, "We don't need to fight yet. We just need to remind them who we are." And so they did. Within weeks, Terran ships began appearing in nearby systems. They didn't engage anyone. They simply explored, mapped, and transmitted peaceful signals. But every movement was measured, every broadcast carefully planned. Their ships carried the symbol of the old Terran eagle, glowing bright against the black of space. One such mission reached a derelict human colony world, a planet once green and full of cities, now silent and covered in sand. The humans landed and began digging through the ruins. They found broken buildings, rusted towers, and an old memorial stone covered in dust. The words carved on it were simple: "For those who sleep, we wait." That line stayed with everyone who read it. It reminded them that their ancestors had trusted them to continue. They were not a new humanity, or they were the same humanity, awakened from a long sleep. When they returned from the ruined world, they brought back artifacts, old data chips, bits of Terran machinery, and fragments of history. They uploaded everything into the central vault database. As the AI pieced together the past, humans finally began to understand what had happened 5,000 years ago. The fall of humanity had not been sudden. It was a slow collapse. Wars, resource loss, then a plague that spread across the colonies. When Earth fell silent, humanity built the vaults as a final hope, leaving messages for a future generation that might awaken and rise again. The people in the vault listened to those old recordings. Some wept quietly. Others stood in silence, holding on to the strength in those voices from the past. Those ancient humans hadn't given up. They had believed that one day their kind would return. And now they had. While they rebuilt, the galaxy's patience began to thin. The Valori Union sent another fleet, this time with more ships. They claimed it was for observation, but everyone knew it was meant to intimidate. The humans detected the fleet long before it arrived. Satellites around the moon tracked their every move. Inside the command room, the humans prepared their defenses. The Arc 7 was nearly ready. Its main engines were online. Its shields reactivated and its weapon system stood by, though no one wanted to use them. When the Valari fleet arrived, they stayed in orbit, broadcasting warnings. "Human vessels," the alien commander said. "You are in restricted space. You will surrender your technology for inspection." The humans didn't reply. Instead, the Ark-7 rose from the ice. The massive ship emerged through clouds of snow and light, engines glowing bright blue. It was enormous compared to the alien vessels, though ancient in design. The Volari ships immediately locked weapons, but before they could fire, the Ark-7 transmitted a single message in clear, calm language. "Stand down. You are trespassing on Terran ground." There was no anger in the voice, only certainty. The Volari fleet hesitated. Their scanners showed impossible readings. The Terran ship's shields were stronger than anything they'd seen. Its power output matched that of an entire battle group. And yet, it didn't fire. The standoff lasted for hours. Finally, the Volari fleet retreated, unwilling to risk war against something they didn't understand. When the ships left, the humans didn't celebrate. They returned to their work quietly as if nothing had happened. But deep down they knew that single encounter had changed everything. The galaxy now knew the truth. Humanity was no longer a ghost. From that day on, no one dared approach the frozen moon without permission. The name Terra began to spread across communication networks again, whispered like a storm approaching from the horizon. Inside the Ark-7, the first human stood at the observation deck looking out into the endless stars. Around him, the crew prepared the ship for its first long journey. The destination was simple: to find the other vaults and unite them. He watched the lights of the galaxy, quiet but full of thought. The human race had lost everything once, but in that loss it had found something unbreakable: the will to survive, to rebuild, to endure. He turned to his crew and said softly, "We slept long enough. It's time to remember who we are." The Ark-7's engines roared as it broke through the atmosphere, heading toward the stars. Behind it, the frozen moon glowed blue, a beacon of humanity's rebirth. Across the galaxy, other Terran signals answered the call. The awakening was no longer a secret. It was a movement. And soon the galaxy would understand the meaning of those old words once again. Humanity never truly dies. It only sleeps, waiting for the moment to rise. The light of distant stars reflected off the surface of the Ark-7 as it drifted quietly through the void. Humanity's oldest warship was no longer just a relic. It was alive again, carrying a new generation determined to rebuild everything that had been lost. The hum of its engines was steady, strong, and comforting, like the heartbeat of something ancient that refused to die. Inside the ship, the humans were busy. Every deck was filled with activity. Technicians checking systems, pilots training in simulators, engineers running tests on power lines older than history itself. It was not an army yet, but a family of survivors learning to walk again after sleeping for 5,000 years. They had one goal: to find the other vaults. For months, the Ark-7 traveled through systems where once humanity had thrived. It passed by shattered colonies, floating debris, and abandoned stations where silence had lasted longer than memory. Each place told a story of what humanity had been and what it had lost. On one world, they found a city buried under red dust. The walls were still standing, and inside one of the towers they found an ancient computer that somehow still worked. It contained maps, old star charts marking vault locations across the galaxy. Most were too damaged to read, but a few coordinates remained intact. That was all they needed. The humans decided to follow those coordinates one by one. They called their journey the Path of Reawakening. Every jump through hyperspace took them closer to pieces of their forgotten past. The first vault they found was hidden inside a hollow asteroid near a dying star. When they approached, there was no response. For a moment, everyone feared it was empty. But when the Ark-7 sent a low-frequency signal using ancient Terran codes, a faint reply came through. It said only 2 words: "We're alive." When the vault doors opened, hundreds of humans walked out, blinking in the light of their ship's flood lamps. They looked weak, pale, and confused, but when they saw the Terran flag painted on the Ark-7, many fell to their knees in relief. Some wept. Others simply saluted even though no one had ordered them to. It didn't matter who they were or where they had been. In that moment, they were one people again. The Ark-7 took them aboard, fed them, and gave them a home. Within weeks, they joined the rebuilding efforts, repairing their ships and sharing their knowledge. That single rescue gave humanity hope like never before. News of the awakening spread again. this time not just among aliens, but among other sleeping humans. Vaults hidden under oceans, inside gas giants, and on frozen moons began sending out faint signals. One by one, the Terran network came alive, connecting across vast distances. Each vault added something new: scientists, engineers, builders, historians. Some had fragments of technology lost for ages. Others had stories, art, and music from the old world. Piece by piece, humanity began to rebuild its soul. But the galaxy was not blind. The alien powers watched the rise of Terrans with growing unease. The Valari Union, the first to encounter them, tried to form a coalition to contain humanity's expansion. They sent envoys demanding the humans remain within certain systems, but no reply came. The humans weren't ignoring them out of pride, they simply had no time for politics. They were rebuilding a species. However, not all aliens were against them. A few independent traders began to approach Terran ships, offering supplies in exchange for technology. At first there was distrust, but as the humans realized these traders meant no harm, a few alliances began to form. Humanity had always known how to adapt, and even after millennia that skill remained. As months turned into years, the new Terran Federation was born, not from conquest, but from unity. Each vault contributed ships, resources, and people. The Arc-7 became its heart, the first of a new fleet. Around it, other restored warships gathered, each one carrying the symbol of the rising eagle. Wings spread across the stars, yet even as they grew stronger, no one forgot how it all began, with a single man waking up in silence, guided only by a whisper of memory and faith. The Federation's first major project was called the Beacon. It was a massive space station built at the edge of Terran space, designed to send a signal across the galaxy, a message not of war, but of return. When completed, it shone bright like a star, broadcasting a clear phrase in every known language. "This is Terra. We have awakened. We come not to conquer, but to remember who we are." The message echoed through the communication networks of every empire. To some, it was a declaration of hope. To others, a warning. The Valari leaders gathered in fear. "They are rebuilding too fast," one said. "If we let them rise, they will rule again," another replied. You can't fight a species that came back from extinction. But there were whispers among alien civilians too. Voices saying that maybe the humans weren't monsters after all. Some remembered the time when humans built schools and trade networks across the stars. Stories of human kindness resurfaced, the way they once helped weaker worlds grow instead of taking from them. The galaxy began to divide, not between species, but between those who feared humanity and those who admired it. On the Arc-7, the humans didn't talk much about politics. They worked. They learned. They grew. Their leader often walked alone through the observation decks, watching the beacon's light across the void. He didn't see it as power. To him, it was a promise, to never fall asleep again, but not everyone was content to watch. One day, the Terran deep-range scanners detected strange movement near the borders. A fleet, massive, organized, and armed, was approaching. The Valari Union had decided to act first. They wanted to test humanity's strength before it grew beyond control. When the humans saw the incoming ships, there was no panic. Instead, preparations began quietly. The Federation fleet gathered, positioning itself near the beacon. Every ship was ready to defend, but none fired first. The alien fleet sent a message: "Terrans, surrender your weapons. Your rise threatens galactic order." The human leader stood on the bridge of the Arc-7, looking out at the endless rows of enemy ships. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He simply replied, "We do not seek war, but we will not kneel." The silence that followed was heavy, almost sacred. Then, without warning, the Valari fired. Their energy blasts struck the Arc-7's shields, lighting the darkness with fire. But the old Terran ship didn't fall. Its shields held firm, glowing brighter with each hit. Then the humans fired back, not to destroy, but to disable. They aimed for engines, not reactors. They fought with precision, not rage. Within minutes, half the Valari fleet was drifting helplessly. The rest retreated, stunned by the humans' discipline and restraint. When the battle ended, the Federation sent rescue drones to recover the alien survivors. They treated the wounded, fed the captives, and sent them home unharmed. That moment changed everything. The galaxy saw not conquerors but guardians, people who remembered compassion even in battle. Soon after, something remarkable happened. Independent worlds that had long suffered under alien control began reaching out to the Terrans. They didn't ask for protection. They asked for guidance. Humanity accepted not as rulers but as allies. Slowly, order began to shift. The Terran Federation became a symbol of balance in a galaxy long divided by fear and greed. Humans didn't seek empires. They sought harmony, and that made them more powerful than any fleet. As time passed, the Arc-7 became a legend. Children across colonies, both human and alien, learned stories of the ship that woke the sleeping race. It wasn't just metal and engines anymore. It was a memory of courage. One evening, as the Arc-7 drifted near the edge of known space, the leader stood again before the stars. He thought of Earth, the blue planet that had started it all. No one had returned there yet. It was time. He gave a single order. Set course for Sol. The ship turned slowly, engines glowing against the dark. Behind it, fleets of Terran ships followed, forming a trail of light across the galaxy. The journey home had begun. And as they moved through the silent sea of stars, a feeling spread through every heart on board. Not pride, not revenge, but peace. Humanity had finally remembered who they were. They had slept for 5,000 years, but now truly they were awake. The sky above Earth was calm again. No fire, no smoke, no ships battling in the heavens. Just blue skies, white clouds, and sunlight touching the green fields that stretched for miles. For the first time in thousands of years, Earth felt alive again. Alara stood at the edge of a valley that had once been covered in metal ruins. Now it was filled with wildflowers, wind, and quiet rivers. The war was long over. The fear that had ruled both sides had finally settled into peace. She looked at the monument in front of her. It was built from stone and crystal, part human, part Alari. Around her stood both species together, humans who had slowly awakened from stasis and Alari visitors who now lived beside them. No one carried weapons anymore. Instead, they carried tools, books, and the hope of starting again. Alara placed her hand on the monument. The surface was warm from the sun. Her voice was soft but steady as she spoke. This planet has slept long enough. Now it's time we wake with kindness. The people around her bowed their heads. Some wept quietly. Others smiled. It was a strange sight, to see two species that had once feared each other now building homes together. It hadn't been easy to reach this point. When the battle ended, both sides were broken. The skies were filled with the wrecks of ships, and the ground trembled with old energy. The first few months were hard. There was confusion, anger, and guilt on both sides. The humans who had awakened from stasis couldn't understand how much time had passed. The Alari were afraid of what humanity might become again, but Alara refused to let history repeat itself. She spent every day talking to both sides, reminding them that peace is not something you find, it's something you build, one act of kindness at a time. She walked through the camps where survivors lived. She listened to stories. She helped rebuild small farms using ancient seeds that had survived underground for 5,000 years. Slowly, trust began to grow. Humans learned to share their technology and old knowledge, while the Alari shared their medicine and energy systems. Together, they healed the land. Children from both races played together in the open air. Their laughter was the first true sound of the new era. Some had silver eyes like the Alari, others brown like their human parents. They didn't care about the old fears. To them, this world was just home. One evening, Alara stood on a hill watching the sunset. Beside her stood Soren, the young Alari who had once risked everything to help her. His wings shimmered softly in the fading light. "It's beautiful," he said quietly. "Yes," Alara replied. "It feels like the world has forgiven us." Soren looked at her and smiled. "It's not the world that forgives. It's us who learn to forgive ourselves." Alara nodded. She knew he was right. Years passed, and the new Earth slowly became a place of balance. Cities were rebuilt, not of steel and glass, but of living material that blended with the forests and oceans. Power came from wind, light, and the deep warmth of the earth. Machines no longer ruled over people. They worked beside them. The stars above were no longer something to fear. Human explorers began to travel again, not to conquer, but to connect. Every ship carried a small emblem, a circle with two hands joined in the middle. It became the new symbol of unity. Alara grew older, though her spirit never dimmed. People began calling her the First Awakened. She laughed whenever she heard it. "I was just the one who happened to open her eyes first," she'd say. The real awakening happened when we learned to care again. There were times when old memories haunted her, the noise of the past, the images of burning skies, the guilt of what humanity once did to itself. But she learned to live with those memories not as chains, but as lessons. Every scar, every broken city reminded her how far they had come. On the 50th anniversary of the New Dawn, a great gathering took place in what was once the heart of old Europe. Thousands of humans and Ilari stood together around the monument. It had grown taller now, engraved with countless names, those who had fought, those who had fallen, and those who had rebuilt. Ilara, now frail but still bright-eyed, stood before the crowd. She took a deep breath. Her voice carried across the valley, gentle but strong. 5,000 years ago, she began, humanity chose to sleep. We thought the world would be better without us. We were wrong. The world needed us, not to destroy, but to protect. We were monsters once. Then we slept. Now we choose to be something better. The crowd was silent. The wind moved softly through the grass. Some people closed their eyes, letting her words sink deep into their hearts. Then, slowly, applause began. It grew and grew until the valley echoed with it. The sound wasn't just celebration, it was relief, forgiveness, and hope. Later that night, as the stars came out, Ilara sat alone near the river. The water reflected the sky, endless and calm. Soren approached quietly, sitting beside her. "You've given them a future," he said. Ilara smiled faintly. "No, they gave themselves a future. I just reminded them who they were." She looked up at the stars, her eyes filled with wonder. "Do you think the others out there will ever forgive us?" Soren followed her gaze. "They already have. They see what we've become. They see that humanity can love again." Ilara nodded, feeling peace wash over her. "Then maybe our long sleep was worth it." That night she dreamed of light, not the harsh light of war or machines, but the warm glow of dawn. She saw children running through fields, humans and Ailari working together, cities filled with music and laughter. She saw the earth shining like a jewel in space once more. When the morning came, she didn't wake. The sun rose over the valley, touching the monument with golden light. The people found her sitting peacefully by the river, a soft smile on her face. They didn't cry, not in sorrow, but in gratitude. Her work was done. Her message had already taken root in every heart. Years later, her words were carved into the stone beneath the monument. "We were monsters once. Then we slept. Now we choose to be something better." Travelers from distant worlds would visit the place, touching the stone and whispering those words as a promise, to themselves, to their children, and to the universe. Under the same stars that once watched humanity destroy itself, now they watched a new kind of people rise, gentle, brave, and united. The earth was no longer a legend of fear. It was a symbol of hope. And somewhere, perhaps in the quiet of the wind, the spirit of Ilara still watched over it all, smiling at the world she had helped awaken.